Ninh explains the rules of Brazilian Jiu Jitsu. The object of the game is to either score more points than your opponent, or force them into submission. Brazilian Jiu Jitsu, commonly referred to as BJJ, is a Brazilian martial art derived from the Japanese martial art of Jiu Jitsu that has become popular worldwide for its effectiveness as a ground fighting system. It's contested on a square mat with an area a minimum of 8 meters by 8 meters and a maximum of 10 meters by 10 meters. Once the referee tells you to go, the match begins. To understand how to score points, you must first understand the positions. This is the neutral position, where no fighter is on top of one another. The fighter on the top is known as top position, and the fighter on the bottom is known as bottom position. A guard is where a fighter on the bottom position uses his legs to prevent the fighter on top from achieving any kind of control. A half guard is where the fighter on the bottom has control of one of the opponent's legs. If you manage to force your opponent to the ground and establish top position for 3 seconds, this is known as a takedown, and this scores 2 points. If you are in the top position, free from any guard, and can place a knee or shin controlling the opponent's torso, this is known as knee on belly, and this scores 2 points. If you are in the bottom position and use the guard to force yourself onto the top, resulting in your opponent being on the bottom instead, for 3 seconds, this is known as a sweep, and this scores 2 points. If you are able to escape from either the full or half guard and maintain a stabilized position for 3 seconds on top, this is known as a guard pass, and this scores 3 points. If you are free from any guard and can sit on the opponent's torso with both knees or feet on the ground for 3 seconds, this is known as a mount and scores 4 points. You can also score this with one knee and one foot on the ground if the opponent is on their side. And if you are free from any guard and can control your opponent's back with heels placed inside your opponent's inner thighs, this is a back control, and this scores 4 points. If you almost perform any of these moves or don't fully complete them for the required amount of time, this is known as an advantage and scores 1 advantage point. Brazilian Jiu Jitsu is contested in just 1 round of anywhere up to 10 minutes. The highest score at the end of time wins. If the contest ends in a tie, the fighter with the highest amount of advantage points wins. If they're the same also, it comes down to the least penalties or referee's decision. However, you can also win the contest automatically at any time if you force your opponent into submission. This is done by either locking your opponent's limbs, back or neck to cause them excessive pain. There are at least 50 ways to perform submission moves. For example, the rear naked chokehold, armbar, and the dreaded triangle. If a fighter has had enough, they can repeatedly tap the floor or their opponent to signal that they submit and the contest is over. You can also win the contest if your opponent loses consciousness, is too injured to continue, or is disqualified. Now, that's a lot to take in, but there's a few other things you'll need to know before fighting or watching Brazilian Jiu Jitsu. For example, things you cannot do. There are plenty of things you cannot do during the course of a bout. Here's a list of a few, but there are many others. Committing these or breaking any other rules may result in penalties or disqualification. Penalty. If a fighter performs illegal moves, shows lack of discipline, shows lack of combativeness, or does something that breaks the rules, a penalty point shall be awarded against them. In the event of a tie, the amount of penalty points matters in judging the overall decision. Side control. A side control is where the fighter on top is lying perpendicular to the fighter on the bottom. Whilst this is a dominant position, doing this alone will not score any points. However, this is a good position to be able to score points. It's also known as a side mount or a cross mount. North-south position. This is where the fighter on top is the opposite way around to the fighter on the bottom. Again, doing this alone will not score any points. It's also known as a four-quarter. Gi or no gi. Brazilian Jiu Jitsu is contested where combatants wear a gi, which is the traditional uniform similar to that of judo. However, some contests are no gi, and they do not wear this uniform. This is to prevent you from excessively grabbing your opponent's clothing, and vice versa. This video is a summary of the International Brazilian Jiu Jitsu Federation rules, but different organisations may have different rules, so always check with your local organisation before you begin. If you found this video at all helpful, please be sure to like, share and subscribe. It takes me ages to make one of these things, and good karma is very much appreciated. If you're also on Reddit, you can post this video and discuss it there. But in the meantime, enjoy Brazilian Jiu Jitsu.